Pigs and the Pudding. In a small village nestled in the countryside there were three little pigs. They lived in their cozy little houses made of straw sticks and bricks respectively. The pigs were known throughout the village for their culinary skills, particularly when it came to making delicious puddings. One sunny afternoon the pigs were feeling particularly hungry, and decided to make a special pudding. They gathered all the ingredients they needed, including flour, sugar, milk, and eggs, and began to mix them in a large bowl. The pigs were excited to experiment with new ingredients, hoping to make a pudding that would wow their friends and neighbors. As they stirred the pudding, they noticed that it wasn't thickening as it should. They added more flour, but it still wouldn't thicken. So they decided to add more milk, but now the pudding was too thin. The pigs were getting frustrated and argued over what to do next. Suddenly they heard a knock on the door. It was their neighbor, Mr. Fox, who had been wandering around the village when he smelled the delicious pudding. Mr. Fox asked if he could have a taste of the pudding, and the pigs, feeling generous, decided to share it with him. But as Mr. Fox was eating, he noticed that the pudding was too thin and started to laugh. The pigs were embarrassed and upset, and they decided to go to their friend Mrs. Goose for help. Mrs. Goose was known as an expert cook in the village, and had a reputation for solving any cooking problem. The pigs explained their predicament to Mrs. Goose, and she agreed to help them. Mrs. Goose tasted the pudding and immediately noticed the issue. "Ah, I see the problem," she said. "You need 2 spoonfuls of magic powder." The pigs were confused, but decided to trust Mrs. Goose. They added the magic powder which Mrs. Goose had given them, and, to their surprise, the pudding thickened and became perfect. The pigs were thrilled and thanked Mrs. Goose for her help. They shared the pudding with their friends in the village, who all loved it and wanted the recipe. The pigs felt proud of themselves, and were glad they had tried something new. From that day forward the pigs learned to always ask for help when they needed it, and not to be afraid of trying new things in the kitchen. They also learned that sometimes a little bit of magic can make all the difference in the world. The pigs continued to experiment with new ingredients and techniques, becoming even better cooks than they were before.